Amazing. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another talk-based event where we are bringing in not just community people, but other teams as well in our cross-collaboration event series. We've done, I think, 3 of these so far. We've talked to marketing, we've talked to other community contributors, and today I'm really excited to be welcoming in a community person and a customer success person to see how they work together. Before we start, and I always forget to do this, I'm Valentina. I'm your host. I have been in the community world, but I now focus solely on events. So if I'm not hosting events or planning events, I'm attending events. So if you ever have any questions around events of any kind, come and find me on LinkedIn in the Talk-Based Friends community. I am there. And, we're coming to the end of the year. This is actually, I think, one of our last cross-collaboration events. So you've joined at a great time. This will be recorded. So if you have to drop out or you're joining in late or you just want to catch the replay at another time, it will all be shared on the Talk-Based site and inside of the Talk-Based Friends community. And also, don't forget, Talk-Based has a dedicated cross-collaboration hub on their website, which is full of resources, guides, events, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to pop the link there in the chat so you can bookmark that and so you can have that at a later time. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome in from Hivebrite, Erin and Meghan. Hello, ladies.
Hi.
Hi
How
there.
are you both today?
Good.
Doing
Chilly.
well.
Chilly. I've heard that it is quite chilly in the UK, even like snow or sleet.
Yeah, it was sleet. 100% sleet.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not snow as in
No.
like snowballs and snowmen.
No.
That's good to know. Well, welcome in, ladies. We're just going to have a conversation really around what you guys do, how you work together, how what kind of projects, initiatives you work on that really help build that community success that we're all looking for. So I would love to find out from the beginning, can you both describe the responsibilities you both have at Hivebrite? And maybe Erin, you can go first.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Erin. I am a senior customer success manager at Hivebrite. I've been with Hivebrite for just over a year, which is crazy. It's gone by really fast. So my role is basically to be a steward for our customers to make sure that they're getting the maximum value out of the platform and their communities in general, because community can mean very different things to different people. We have a lot of different use cases from like nonprofit to commercial to associations, alumni, that kind of thing. So it's basically trying to use the platform to make sure that it can work across all different use cases, making sure that we have strong relationships as well, and essentially being the advocate for those clients across Hivebrite.
Amazing. And Meghan, what do you do? Oh, I think Meghan might have frozen. That's okay. We will wait for her to come back and then continue talking. Is she frozen for you, Erin?
Yeah, I think she came back for a second and then she's frozen.
That's okay. We'll let her go back, come out of the Zoom and then come back in. And we'll just carry on the conversation. So within the role of customer success, I'd love to know, like, first of all, can you give us a bigger picture of what that team looks like? How many people are there? Like, do you all focus on the same things in the customer success team, or is it some people, you have more senior people? Like, how does that look?
Yeah, so it's really cool at Hivebrite actually. We're a massive team. I think there's over 20 of us at this point. As CSMs, so customer success managers who look after the relationships, that side of things. We're all over the place. So my team consists of myself, my manager, and one of my colleagues is based in Paris, another is based in Greece. We have US counterparts. We've got some down under as well who look after the APAC side of things, which is great. And we're within the CS team in general, there's customer support who, as anyone here who works in SaaS or works with SaaS will know, are like the real MVPs. They know everything. They're amazing. We're also really lucky to have a amazing onboarding team. So as a
Mm.
CSM, I've worked in roles before where you're kind of the jack of all trades, where you look after onboarding, you look after the full post-sales life cycle, basically. Whereas here we partner with onboarding specialists who have really great technical knowledge and are experts in getting people up to speed on the platform as quickly as possible so they can get value out of it. We've also got an enablement team who are amazing. They cover everything from customer education to making sure we've got great content for customers, whether that be like webinars or case studies, that sort of thing. Keeping the knowledge base up to date because we're constantly changing and bringing out new features and things like that. So they really help CSMs especially kind of focus more on customer use cases rather than creating materials and that sort of thing. And then we also have the wonderful community team, and I can see Megan's back now, so that's quite a nice segue back to her.
Amazing.
Yeah,
So,
I
yeah,
don't know
Megan,
if
tell
it's
us.
just
No, carry on.
I, absolutely. I don't know if it's just the typical. I feel like that's on a tech bingo card of losing your Wi-Fi in the middle of a call. So,
It's
um,
okay.
so yeah, thanks. So I'm the senior community strategist at Hivebrite. The idea behind my role is Erin's team or the CS team provides a lot of the technological support, but I came from a community management background. I've been doing that just about the entirety of my career. I've worked for other community platforms as well. So clients often call me in when they're needing to work on strategy, figure out how to engage their community, how we talk about engagement. I feel like that's a big buzzword in the community space. So it's my job to help our clients kind of talk themselves down and say, yes, you can do this. This is possible. Outside of that, I also run the Hivebrite community for our clients. And so anytime they have questions or want to talk to one another versus talking to one of us, they have that space as well. So I wear several different hats, but I really enjoy being a community manager as my kind of priority and primary role.
Amazing. And just so we get a bigger picture, are you part of the customer success team? Is the community team separate? Like, where does it sit?
Yeah, so the community team sits underneath CS. There
Mhm.
are some other folks who help kind of in an adjacent accountable role from our sales department, from marketing, that kind of thing. But the community itself sits in the CS function.
Perfect. Great. All right. Well, let's kick off. Now that we know a little bit more about what you do, can you let us know how you collaborate with each other and the wider team? If there's any primary goals related to that, and yeah, really, how do your team just come together? Either one can answer first.
Sure. Well, for me, I'm quite fortunate because I have a background in community, but it's quite rare, right? Like we all work in the community sphere, but we all know it's a very, 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 very small world. So the chances of a CSM coming in with community experience is quite slim. So I think where Megan and I collaborate really well and where Megan collaborates amazingly with the rest of the team is she can just provide that um she's got that experience. She's been on the ground. She's got the same perspective and has walked in the same shoes as our clients. She's been the community manager. She's had, possibly like decision makers or stakeholders hold her to probably like some impossible targets sometimes because it is not a widely understood area. Yeah, even though it's been going for quite a long time, it's still quite misunderstood, or you have people like, oh, it's just social media, but it's so much more than that. So having someone that we as a team, we as professionals can tap into, who's experienced those same issues and has that kind of not empathy, but like lived experience of whatever they're going through and whatever they're trying to achieve. It just gives us an additional lens to kind of get to know our clients a bit better and understand what they need from us, firstly. And then also just things that might pop up like on the way, because people will have a wonderful strategy, a great plan of how they hope their community will evolve. But ultimately, we're dealing with human beings. Like it's a living, growing organism. And it doesn't always go to plan. People don't always engage in the way you'd hope. People don't always react. It's not the kind of like build it and they will come project. So having someone who can just like provide that reassurance and the expertise and like practical ideas can really, really help with a relationship, because sometimes it's quite easy to get hung up on minute details, but Meghan's got this really great gift where she can bring it back to the kind of reason that the community was brought in the first place.
When I was first building community, I remember thinking, we need to use all the functionality so that the community looks cool and sexy and people are engaged. And the more I work in community, the more I understand so much of this work is about creating one thing that you reiterate to people over and over. This is the way we talk to one another. This is the space we use to collaborate, and continuing to just provide that consistency. So when I get clients now from Erin or anyone on our team, I always love that they come in with really cool ideas, and that's great. But for me, it's always about how do we make sure that that's actually worth your time and something that your users are actually interested in. So that's kind of the way that we function. Erin brings folks to me who may be needing some, not necessarily level setting. They could need someone who brings more life to whatever their community plans are. And Erin provides for me someone who has seen enough of our clients to say, oh, well, Meghan's suggesting you do a really cool program coming up. I've got a user that's actually already doing that. Let me connect you to that person so you can get some ideas going and really get inspired by what you're doing or what you'd like to do next.
I love that. I mean, essentially what you're both doing is helping the customers be successful, hence the words customer success. And if customer success and community can't get that right, you sound like you've got it right. But if you can't get that right, then there's a problem, right? Because essentially both of your jobs are to help people build successful communities. And by you, Erin, being able to funnel over the people that are right for Meghan, and Meghan then helping them, and then, you know, usually passing back and forth depending on what they need and what they want. So I love that. And I think it makes sense, I guess, for you, Meghan, to be sitting in that team. I know that community teams are sometimes a standalone team, sometimes they're in marketing, sometimes they're in customer success. I think I've even seen teams in the product team. But I think based on what I know about community and what I think probably would work best cross collaboratively, community in customer success makes sense, right?
Makes sense. It does. I think it really makes sense. I think I understand the reason for having community in like maybe product management or marketing. I understand that, but I think having it in customer success, it brings the goal back to the success of existing customers, where I think with when community is sat under marketing, and I'm not sure if your experience has been similar, Meghan, but the goal kind of shifts towards marketing towards new clients, whereas, you know, in customer success, we know that our most valuable revenue comes from existing clients and their growth and their success, and those things for me should be organic. Like, I think, you know, customer advocacy, customer growth, it should be organic. It should be because they're succeeding and then they're needing to grow, they're needing to try new features, that sort of thing. So for us to be able to like be in a company that focuses on those existing clients rather than the funnel necessarily, that for me as a CSM is really great, because it shows that they value the function, and that we're it's not just like, cool, the customer signed up to Hivebrite now, here's the CS team, that's it. We're focusing on upskilling people in community. We're focusing on making sure that they can really be the best that they can be with experts like Meghan, rather than, you know, just us lowly CSMs. I'm joking, CSMs are great, but you know what I mean.
No, that totally makes sense. Sorry, Meghan, continue.
What I have experienced, I've managed communities in product, marketing, and CS. And I think product-based communities often miss some of the human component, because your users are so focused on getting product questions answered that they're going, well, I need to fix this about the issue I'm having with Hivebrite, and then they leave. And then on the opposite end, if you're managing a community that is marketing focused, a lot of the times their KPIs or their measurement is based on brand awareness. So they want users to talk about the brand. They want the use cases so that they can showcase them on the public site. So I get that function. But in CS, at least for me personally, the main target is how do we expand users' knowledge of the community or of the platform? So how do we take someone who knows and is using only 20% of this platform and increase them all the way up to 80 to 100%? But also, how do we connect them to other users who are utilizing our platform well? I think that secondary KPI creates a lot more meaning for me because it's not just how do we get people, how do we build a relationship just to post this on the website? Or how do we build a relationship just to answer a question and be done? I think CS or housing the community under CS allows us to actually be present and be accountable start to finish in a client's journey.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And you started touching on like key performance indicators, and I want to talk a bit about like key factors for a moment. And like, what do you believe were the key factors that contributed to the success of YouTube and the wider team working together? Was there anything you decided at the beginning, like, okay, we're doing this together, this is what we need to achieve?
Yeah, I think I mean honestly, I think we need each other. Like without like too corny. I think sometimes, you know, in CS, sometimes you have a client's problem that might be a certain feature is missing, or they've changed someone over in the team and the new person that's been brought in doesn't have that much experience in community and we need to retrain them, that sort of thing. But quite often the root of the issue isn't what you've been told or what isn't what's being brought to you. So like I like analogies, so I'll go with an analogy. Like I'll think of myself as like a GP. I know a lot about a little. No, a little about a lot. Edit this one out, Valentina. No, I know this. So if a client will like basically come to me with their symptoms, and then with Meghan's experience and her background, having like been in that position herself probably before, she can then identify like the root cause of it, the root cause of the pain, and then we'll work together to find a fix. And it's very rarely like this button's the wrong color, like that. It's very rarely the problem. Usually it's something else, whether it's a lack of content, whether it's a lack of buy-in from someone above. That's usually where the issue is. So I think like for me, the way I kind of track our success as a partnership is if I have a client that has you know, been introduced to Meghan and gone through her training sessions and her strategy sessions, then I'll look at that. I'll look at that in 3 months' time. I'll look at it in 6 months' time. I'll see what's changed. And I'm not looking at like end user engagement necessarily. I'm looking at the activities and the effort put in by the client, by the community manager. I'm looking at their activities day to day and just seeing if they've actually taken on board those suggestions, that consultancy, and applied those, because that's where things start to change. Like community doesn't change over in a day. Like it doesn't, you don't get that immediate gratification that you get with some products. So I think for me, those are kind of the key factors that I look at. And I also look at like, are they finding it easier? Are they panicking less? Are they needing less reassurance? Do they feel like they're confident? They're confident in what they're doing and what they're bringing to the table? Because I think with community, sometimes it's so hard to put a number on things. And when you do, that number can also sometimes be a vanity metric. So being able to just look at the like what's going on in the community and how kind of easier, how much easier those admins and those community managers are finding things, that's a really big thing for me.
No, it makes total sense. Meghan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think I just generally while you were speaking, Erin, it made me think about how key factor for us is trying to figure out what's the right time for me to come in and intervene to support a client. I think one of our key factors to success is just our client base. I feel like we have a really strong community of folks we've worked with for years. I even once Debbie joined the call, who's one of our clients, if she doesn't mind me putting her on the spot, I remember like at the start of this call, I just went, "Oh, Debbie's here." just
Yeah.
made me so excited. But at Hivebrite, we really try to focus on what's the right time to engage this user and how should we be engaging them. There are a lot of veterans in the Hivebrite community, so they may know the platform in a way that they're not necessarily looking for questions around the platform or best practices. So for them, we have to offer them in-person events, or we have to go to them to make sure that they feel supported. Um, on the opposite end, there may be a newbie or someone who's just learning our platform. And so I found those users can sometimes be so bogged with the technological like learnings of community platforms that it's best for me to come in once they've got a clear understanding of how the platform works and functions. So key factors, I think, is having a really strong relationship with the clients we already have. I always encourage our community managers, build those relationships, because you never know who's in the community and who's willing to take it further. But also just developing the right relationship at the right time with them. So I kind of think about 3 different types of users, and I target my interactions with them based off of that.
Oh, I love that. I mean, I love what you said at the beginning, Erin, about, we need each other. And I think like we laugh at that, but like it's incredible to when you realize how much work really goes into being the community manager, being the customer success manager. I know there's some people that maybe are watching this that do a lot of cross collaborating with themselves because they've got so many responsibilities. So having someone else to rely on, to share the responsibility, to check in with, and just make sure that you're keeping each other accountable for what you're meant to be doing is a huge part of that. And then the whole part about making sure people are feeling like they're moving forward, they're advancing, they're becoming more successful, because that's really key for retention, advocacy, and all that kind of stuff. So love that. So we talked about success. Let's talk about challenges, if there are any. Are there any challenges that you've both faced that there's, I guess, stopped you from working on projects, or just created a bit of chaos, and how have you overcome those?
I can take this one on. So what I know for sure, I think anyone can attest to as a community manager on the call, is you are in a constant state of having to provide the value and explain to people what you do and why it matters. So for me, a really big mantra is I take nothing personally, and I create no criticism that is personal against anyone on our teams. So when I'm receiving feedback, I always tell people I'm not going to take this personally. So I'm going to record all you need. What's the feedback you have for me, or how do you feel this should improve? But simultaneously, I preface before I give criticism that, tactfully speaking, none of this is none of this is personal to me. So I think that builds a relationship where I've worked with product, and it's just saying to someone yesterday, product often feels like you're building something. Name one other career or role where you're building something for hours on end, you publish it to the public, and then everyone goes, okay, yeah, but this other thing I need, right? So product is constantly in this cycle in every company, not specific to Hivebrite, but in every company, product is constantly building something in a kind of thankless environment because people want them to build on the next thing. So when I feel that, tension with product of, hey, my client really needs this, my client really wants this, how do we advocate for them? I have to understand that there may be some personal feelings they're coming from to begin with, but if I can set a ground where everybody can kind of feel, let's get some honest feedback going, but in a tactful way, I think that is how I overcome those challenges on our teams.
Yeah, perfect. What Meghan said. I think also like they've created a really nice space in the Hivebrite community for product to communicate directly with clients. So we have a space where let's say one of the product managers is focusing on a new area to develop. Maybe it's something new, or maybe it's something that might be getting a bit of a facelift, whatever it may be, they can then go into the community and basically ask questions to our existing clients. They can offer up spaces in like working groups where they kind of like interview the clients and try and understand a little bit more about what they're hoping to achieve with this new feature or this facelift, whatever it may be. And I think that's really nice. And I think that's a nice way of like almost you're not like giving the platform away, but offering like space within the platform to show like, look, like us having the community here gives you access to basically like your beta testers, anyone who wants to sign up. And I think the take-up's been really great, really, really good. I've got several people who are very, very, very excited to be beta testing. So I think that's something that's been quite a bit nice to work on with the product team. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And yeah, I think members of our communities, they love to get closer and closer to the company and the people that work there. So any way to give them a bit of an in, whether it's,
Yeah.
as you said, beta testing, or they get to talk to someone one-on-one that they wouldn't normally have the chance to. Like, people love that. And that can be really great. But between you both, have you had any obstacles in like you collaborating together? Like, has there been times where you've just got too much workload and that, say, Erin, you needed to pass on a few more customers to Meghan and Meghan doesn't have the bandwidth? Has anything like that come up that you've had to overcome at all?
I mean, Megan's in Texas and I'm in London, so we have a slightly
So
a slightly
different.
Alone.
but that's not something either of us can help. But
Yeah.
I mean, for me, no, like I try to be really conscious of Megan's calendar, and I know she's extremely busy, so I like to kind of act as not a doorman, but kind of a doorman. So if I do see that Megan's calendar is like getting a bit built up, I'll kind of, I'm trying to think. You know, like how films put out like a teaser trailer. I'll kind of try and do like a teaser. Stop laughing. I'll try and do like a teaser trailer version of what Megan will do with the client. So I'll try and do that almost like I keep going back to like the doctor's office analogies here, but like, you know, when you speak to a receptionist and before they can triage you to the right doctor or the right specialist, they need to understand at a kind of high level what your aches and pains are, where it's hurting, what have you already tried to do to fix it, so that then when they do start with Meghan, if there might be like a little bit of a delay there, which there really rarely is, but if there is, we can just hit the ground running, and Meghan's got kind of a clear overview of where the trouble is, if there is any, or where the focus points for those sessions should be, and then we can just hit the ground running.
No, that's great. Oh, sorry, Meghan, carry on.
No, you're okay. When I first started working in a marketing-based community, I remember being able to kind of push people to another person who could say, okay, this is the answer, right? But in my role, I'm often the person that people need the answer from as the community manager. So I think, kind of going off of what Erin was mentioning, sometimes I may prescribe something or recommend something, and Erin will have to say, actually, I think we've already done that. Or actually, the client needs something that's a little less strenuous because they're overwhelmed or they're doing a million things, and that's not the most important thing right now. So I would definitely say those are the moments where I find I have to maybe meet with Erin or a CSM prior to the call, just so that I can understand more accurately, like, what's the answer I'm going to give before we even get on the call with the client.
Yeah. And I guess that can be quite difficult when there's a time zone involved with that. So
Definitely.
I'd love to know how like you navigate the communicating with the time zone difference, because a lot of companies now have their teams remotely. Like, how does that work? Because if you're in Texas, then Erin, you're technically up earlier than Meghan is. Like,
Wow, she's an expert. Sometimes I'll log on and I'm like, why is she online?
Up at all times of the night.
Yeah.
For that answer, I would say I actually learned this from working with Salesforce. We block out, from the minute you join the team, you block out what your times are. And it's obviously we live in an imperfect world, so you're going to get some imperfect calls on your calendar, but the time zone that I block is often married with what our clients are probably somewhere between like noon to 3 p.m. in London. So I try to keep hours that are like this is my meeting window. If we can't do it today, let's move it to some other day. Um, and I'm a firm believer, at least for me personally, it's really hard. I know there are some cultures where, I've seen community managers just give their Calendly link out and say, book a time with me anytime you want. I really encourage people that my time is precious and your time is precious. So in order for this call to start on time and end on time, I need at least 24 hours just to like make sure I understand what we're going to be talking about today. So I don't take calls on the day of, and um, I try to respect the time window that both Erin and I have, because if we didn't, then I'm getting on a call with, very uneducated perspective. Erin's probably getting on the call going, oh, can we get off of this meeting? So respecting everybody's bandwidth and time zones is pretty important to me.
That's
I
great.
think Megan's also taught me to respect my own as well, which has been a lesson. Like that is, any CSM can say this, like it's a lesson. It's not something you do automatically. I'm such a yes person. I'm such a, yeah, I can stay on for an extra half an hour, no problem. But those extra half an hours, like they build up, they build up. And Megan is pretty militant on timing, but she does it in such a great way. Like she always says, like, I want to respect your time, I want to respect your calendars. She is really, really good at that. And I know that's not necessarily to do with the kind of CS community collaboration, but I think it's just an important lesson. And I think in an industry and in these roles like community management and customer success, which can sometimes become the everything roles for a lot of people, and especially in smaller startups, little things like that are so important. So to have someone else on your team who you respect, like advocating for your time as well as their own and like leading by example, has been really good.
I think it's very important because, as you said, things build up. You then don't have necessarily any boundaries with your own time, and we can't be on calls all day every day because there are things that need to be done on a daily basis that by the end of the week you're like, oh my God, I've got so much to do. So I think that's important, both to like set those expectations with the customers, but also create that expectation within the team, and that our calls are going to start and end on time. We're not going to stay over. Like, let's make sure these calls are actionable, and that we at the end of the call we're like, okay, what's next, rather than us coming off the call being like, do we need another call? I hate that. Like, it just seems like so unnecessary. So I think that's really important to especially when there's time zones involved, in that you're both learning to when people are working, how to respect each other's calendars, and that can in turn help the collaboration because you're more open with each other, rather than somebody who is the person that always stays longer, and then the other person doesn't, and then you clash and then you argue, and then the partnership then falls to pieces, right? So I think if anybody is listening, like, one thing that you really need to get down when you're cross collaborating with your team is getting on the same page of like, okay, when does everybody work? Do people have windows for meetings? Because I know some people, they don't take meetings on Fridays, for example, because we've all got stuff to do. So yeah, that's really important for the cross collaboration between the team, so that you can then be successful in whatever you're cross collaborating on. So love.
I think as well, like it's we pencil in time to like talk as colleagues and friends as well. Like we're both remote. I'm a chatty person. It gets lonely at times. So, those kind of like water cooler chats or like those work lunches that you have when you're in the office, like neither of us have that. So we were really fortunate to meet earlier in the year, introduced Megan to Coronation Chicken and fish and chips, I think. Yeah, loved it. Great fun. Very, very eager. But it's like, if we do have like a spare half an hour, like on a Friday afternoon, something like that. Like, well, my afternoon, Megan's morning. Like, we'll try and schedule in like a coffee and chat and just connect on that level, because that helps us then keep those. She does love coronation chicken. That helps us keep that time that we've scheduled in to talk about work stuff as work stuff, and lets us be productive then. So that's something I think is important, because yeah, it helps you get along and care about each other on an individual level too.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. Now, I want to talk about best practices. We talked a little bit about, aligning with calendars and things like that, but what best practices do you both have that you would recommend to other teams and individuals that may be new to cross collaborating with each other or want to cross collaborate more, that are effective in making that relationship with you and the other teams better?
Yeah, I think the first primary thing I'd say I'm learning now in retrospect, teams need some form of one mutual KPI, or even if it's not something that you are being tracked by, it's something you should care about. Um, when I started working with Hivebrite, I was working on all kinds of different projects, and I thought, I guess 1 year out, I'm thinking, oh, I probably should have checked, how does product see their success? How does marketing see their success? Because if I'm building these projects and they're not crossing over into what matters to them, I think that can be a problem. So understanding those KPIs, and even down to when I meet with clients, any of Erin's clients or CSM's clients, I like to ask them, what are they actually measuring? Because if they're measuring something, and our platform can provide it, like, I want to make sure that I continue to advocate for that feature, or advocate for the tools that makes that feature expand. Um, because I think that's what's important is, everybody's got something to track, something to report on, but if they're not crossing in any capacity, it even further like deprioritizes whatever you're working on together. So keeping some form of a mutual KPI is important to me, I think.
Love that. Erin, what about you?
So in terms of best practice, I think get to know each other, get to know each other's strengths, weaknesses, just like be really open to learning from each other, right? So like coming from the community background, I joined Hivebrite thinking I knew everything and that I would hit the ground running. But like these communities are different to what the communities I worked with before when I worked with you, Valentina. They're much bigger organizations. It's less kind of attention economy. It's way more like really established most of the time communities with a strong history, and sometimes it might be their first time going digital, but usually the community already exists, right? I learned so much from Megan. Like when I first joined, she did like these kind of community sessions just for CSM. So we learned about like I knew about the community life cycle, but in a lot of detail. I didn't know what I know a lot about plants outside of work. I love plants, but I did not know what mitosis meant in line with community strategy. So that was really interesting. And I think like just staying curious, it's not really best practice, but I do think it's really important, and just knowing that you don't know everything and just being open to learning. I think that's something that is just really important. And also celebrating successes. So like Megan's success is my success is Megan's success. If we are able to help move the needle for a client, let's say that they were struggling with engagement or weren't sure really where to go on their strategy, maybe they had like a tricky moderator or group admin that they just needed a bit of support with dealing with and getting on the right track with, and then that improves, then that's a direct reflection of our partnership, right? That's something that I don't think I could have done alone. And yeah, that's something to be celebrated. I think we always need to celebrate the wins.
Yeah, I don't think we celebrate wins enough, and I think a lot of the time, I guess we're convinced it has to be a big win to be able to
Yeah.
celebrate it. Like, and it really doesn't have to be. It's small wins. In fact, I actually have on my desktop is a wins folder which
Woo!
which if you know of Max Pete, who is somebody in the community industry,
That's
he was the one who suggested it to me. Basically, you take screenshots of
yeah.
something that big or small that is a win. And that way you can look back in that folder every week and be like, oh. So when you're having a bad week or a bad day where you're just like nothing is working out, you go and look in there and it's really, really uplifting.
100%.
So,
Mine's called Happy Things. And
ah,
it's like it's a mixture of like things that I've like either when someone's like said thank you, Debbie, you're in my folder. Debbie's lovely. It's like a mixture of like happy things or like memes or just, sometimes when you're, maybe having a bad day and you just need to look and be like, yes, I'm capable, pull yourself out of imposter syndrome, because we all get that. Yeah, just being able to, it's the little things. And I don't think those big wins would happen if it wasn't like an accumulation of all those little things. Like quite often it's not just like you've changed one massive thing and boom, something happened. Usually it's like a build up of a lot of small changes or adjustments or encouragements. So yeah.
And something else that I've seen a lot of teams do, and especially if you work a lot remotely and then you kind of connect virtually, Slack is usually one of the most popular places to connect in, but you could be using Teams or whatever, is publicly, saying thank you or like giving a little bit of praise to whoever you're working alongside against. So if a project went well, or, someone like Debbie has shared a thank you message, share that with the team, because that can help that relationship with the wider teams get closer together, knowing that, somebody has said something that involved all of you and now you can all celebrate it together.
Yeah. That goes across so many different teams like that. Like Megan said earlier, product are quite often unsung heroes. Like they're bringing out these new features, new changes, and then it's like, okay, but what's next? So when something has been brought out and a customer's been like, oh my God, this is amazing, I'll always try and share that because it goes into my inbox. It doesn't go into theirs. So if I'm not sharing this, then they don't see it. Customer support, oh my God, like amazing, amazing people. Like they're just amazing. I'm a big fangirl, and I will try and shout about it, and I get quite soppy and gooey about it because I just have a lot of love to give, and I think people need to be celebrated, especially when we're all like so spread out and we can't just go over to someone's desk and be like, good job, here's a Kinder Bueno, like sometimes you need to shout about it on Slack, so I do try and do that whenever I can.
No, that's great. And I can see the chat that a lot of people have these folders. They're all various different names to celebrate wins. So love that.
Wonder if Max is the root of all of these folders.
Probably.
Yeah.
Hopefully someone can pass on that we talked about him in this event and share that. Megan, I have a question
One
for
thing
you. Oh yeah, sorry, carry on.
I just want to say on the boost point, I try to do this with our community members. So anytime they do show and tells or like a best practice share of any kind, I try to extremely praise them or show them that we care. Like that used to just be a show and tell opportunity, but I thought, no, like let's provide or let's pull a CSM and say, hey, can you do just a quick 10-minute snippet and say how you really appreciated the way that that team built that certain aspect of the platform. So that kind of thing is the same way we need our folders. I think our community members need folders too from us or our own praise as well.
Yeah, and I think if you start practicing these practices within the team, then it's easier to then push them out into the community, because you're already doing that. Otherwise, if you're only doing it in the community and the team isn't celebrating that as well, that's where it gets harder to cross collaborate with people because you're not sharing, you're not working together. So I love that you're doing both. Now, I want to ask you, Megan, a question. So, like, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a lot of community people who may have not collaborated with their customer success team or marketing or whichever team, and are like, I don't know where to start. And I would love to know, like, when you came in to join Hivebrite, like, how did you maneuver into this cross collaboration space and make it your own of sorts, and like, and then I guess the second question is like, how should people start or initiate that they want to cross collaborate with another member in their team?
I think that's a really good question. I feel that that comes from, maybe I worked for a facilitation company prior to working at Hivebrite, and I'll never forget, we had this whiteboard drawn of, okay, everyone in marketing list all the things you're working on, and then we did it with product and we did it with the community team. And from there we said, okay, let's now take 5 more minutes or 10 more minutes and see where there's overlap between some of those things. So we clustered together all of those different projects. And then from there, a third part of that meeting was everyone rotating around to talk to, basically we did breakout sessions of one person in product, one person in CS, and one person in marketing. So every triad was its own cluster and you rotate it out. So by the end of that, everyone gets a pretty clear picture of what everyone's doing, where each of those things overlap, and then where we're going to go forward. So I think at Hivebrite, there is no me prior to me and my counterpart. So we've kind of been the first folks to do this role in that way. So I'd say, if the question is around like, how did I build that pathway? Honestly, I think it just goes back to taking things one day at a time. Reminding everyone, I'm not coming in to bulldoze everyone's plans, but also I know a little bit of I always say I know a little bit of a lot about community. And if we want people to feel we are to be trusted in this, we have to present ourselves as community experts. We are a community platform and we are the experts. So I think that may be one way. Another thing, and maybe this is a spicy take, but I believe in a world that is very AI centric. We sometimes focus on AI so much that we don't allow ourselves to stop and say, oh, Erin's right next door, metaphorically next door. So let me ask Erin first what her perspective is, and let's go from there. I have to course correct a lot, not specific to Hivebrite because I've seen it in past companies before, but I have to course correct a lot of AI written things because we naturally default to, let's take the advice from this aggregate tool, but not from someone who's actually been in that shoes or been in that perspective.
I think a lot of the times, I think, like AI being so popular now, so easy just to be like, hey, can you help me with this? And I guess I'm trying to think why I've done this and not reached out to someone before is because I feel like, okay, maybe they're too busy. Like I don't want to add more work to their plate.
Sure.
But in hindsight, like you're probably gonna get a better answer, and that's probably how you're gonna solidify your relationship by reaching out. And I remember when I was in companies before, like I barely spoke to different people, and then you leave the company and like, oh, I didn't even speak to that person. But I probably could have done if I'd gone to them and asked them about a certain thing that I used AI for instead. So I think it's not, you still use AI for different things, but like start to get to know your other colleagues and what they do and what they specialize in, because you can foster that cross collaboration when you've asked them a question about something and now suddenly you've got a project that you put together and it's really exciting and now you're cross collaborating. So I guess the crux of this is if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah,
I'm a
absolutely.
big believer in. Some people will say no, and sometimes stakeholders and other team members may be a little bit resistant to cross collaborating. But I think that goes back to your point, Megan, of like we are the community experts. So we're not going in to bulldoze everything. Like I want to work together. Like what is your goal? This is my goal. How can we come together and make it successful and share the load? It's not about taking on all the responsibility, because I think that's what we do as community people a lot. We feel like we should do everything, and we just can't.
Well, work is expensive. I think it's expensive. It is taxing to take time out of my day to work on something that maybe has no relevancy to the person I'm about to present to. So like building a culture where I always say, like, if it's not collaborative, I'm probably not going to be interested in working on it, because it takes more than me to get what I need done. And I'd much rather work in an environment where we can collaborate versus I'm going to work in my silo. No one wants to work in a silo. Yet that's constantly where we find ourselves. So when I sense that it's starting to become a siloed conversation or a siloed project, I say, okay, let's deprioritize this, because there's not enough of us to create one thing or spearhead something just by ourselves. We have to do this work together.
Yeah. I think also like there's nothing better than like getting in a room, be it virtual or in person, with other people and like just having loads of like brain farts and just putting them on the wall and coming up with great ideas and collaborating that way. Like I love that. We all love ChatGPT. It's really helpful for a lot of things. Most recently helping me what to make with what's left in my fridge before a food stop. Like there's loads of things it's great for in the professional world and outside, but me kind of going back and forth with AI, like I just don't think that brings the same amount of excitement for me. Like, because like who else is seeing it? I'm not getting like amped up by anyone else. I think it's Chef AI, literally me. I think it's just you need that human cohesion and collaboration, and I think we're all in the community space because we love people. We're curious about other people. We're curious about what makes them tick, what makes them happy, what brings them value. So that's probably why it's so important to us, I think.
Yeah, that just makes total sense. We could talk about this for hours, but
Yeah, this is a whole other webinar.
yeah. I'm conscious on time, so I want to have the opportunity for anyone to ask questions. So I'll ask you one more question, and it's really on like long-term collaboration. Like, how do you plan to maintain this collaboration that you've got together moving forward? Are there any long-term goals or projects that you have in the pipeline that will benefit from you two working together?
I think from my side, like we're a community platform, and I like to look at our client base like their own community. And I think it very much is. I think there's so much more we could be doing though. There always is, like in-person events, virtual events, kind of limited series events, those kinds of things. And also just materials, figuring out what people want. Is it just kind of how to do product things, or is it going to be more product agnostic side, that sort of thing. So I'm constantly like mining ideas and taking notes from what my customers are bringing to me, what kind of themes are coming up commonly. And then I think that's something that we'll definitely be exploring with Meghan and the enablement team to set up in the future. But yeah, I think there's a lot we can be doing.
Right. I mean, you mentioned events. I love events. They're one of the best ways to build community. So if you're not doing events for your community, start thinking about them. Meghan, what about you?
For us, or at least on my side, it's figuring out more tightly what our personas will be for the new year and basing some of our events off of that. There are a lot of folks who are maybe loving to get together in person, but we have a lot of folks from an accessibility standpoint who may not be able to attend some of our meetings. So, how do we provide support to them while also providing support to folks who maybe want something in between? Like, people really love our in-person events. How do we turn some of that virtually as well? And then I think, Erin mentioned doing office hours at the start of the call or earlier on. And I think I want to start getting back to some of that. I really miss getting to meet with our team all the time and hearing their crazy questions and how do we troubleshoot this in the platform, or how do we build a super user program in the platform this way? Tell us more. So I think that's what's coming up the pipeline for us so far.
Oh, I'm excited about that.
Huh?
Yeah.
I'm excited about that because what I love is bringing Meghan like a bonkers idea and just seeing if she's like absolutely no, or she's like, oh yeah, cool, let's try it. What about this way? And that's what I love about those kind of office hour sessions.
And that's what is so good. And also it has two sides of the coin. Is in community building, you're forever trying and testing things and seeing what
Yeah.
fits, right? Which is great because it's ever changing, it's exciting, but there's a lot of times when things don't work out. And I think if there's anything to take away from this webinar is that failure is okay. You should celebrate the small wins as much as you celebrate the big ones. But if things don't work out, you just pivot and move on, which is why cross collaborating with another member of the team, where there's two approaches and opinions, can really help move a project or an initiative forward that you may not be able to do by yourself. And again, if you don't ask, you don't get. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. We have a few more minutes, so I would love if anybody has a question, you can pop it inside of the chat. You can raise your hand and ask it, and come off of mute. If you have any questions for Erin or for Meghan based on their successful cross collaboration together. Any questions? Ooh. Feel like somebody might be typing, so I'll give you a moment. And as a reminder,
folks are maybe. Oh, go ahead, Valentina, if you have.
Oh, no, carry on.
I just wanted to say one of the biggest impacts I see in how we do work together is clients may come to us, and over the course of just 3 calls alone, like we're able to either really transform a community and see a lot of high engagement, or create opportunity for someone to renew a contract in the upcoming year, those kinds of things. So really big impact. I'm really grateful to work with Erin and work with the Hivebrite team. So
yeah, we recently had a client that we worked together on who they had a lot of groups, it was a very siloed community, and there were struggles with group admin engagement and getting them kind of bought in on the project because they all had other jobs. They all had lots of things to do, like many community managers were abundance of hats. So they had quite a humble goal of wanting to improve their engagement with these group admins by 5% across the whole year. And after a few sessions, I think it was like 3 or 4 sessions with Meghan's team, their engagement grew by 11%.
Wow.
So they smashed it. So now I hope they'll be a bit less humble with their goals, because they can definitely do more. But it is just proof that sometimes having someone who isn't like bogged down in the day-to-day of your company, who has fresh ideas and fresh perspectives, to give you that bit of reassurance and say, hey, why haven't you tried this? What about that? Let's just try it and see what happens. What's the worst that can happen? Can be really, really effective.
No, that is the perfect way to end this webinar, Erin. Thank you for that. And we got first of all, we got a comment from Debbie, said, not a question, but lovely to see Erin and Meghan as a client. I really enjoy working with them and the whole team at Hivebrite. But we do have a question. It's from Carola, I hope I'm saying that right. What are your recommendations regarding too much cross collaboration? I've recently started my community role in a small startup that just launched their community a few months ago, and I'm currently struggling to prioritize big ticket items because there's so much so much that they want them to do so fast.
I feel like this is definitely a Meghan question. Before I offer the floor to her, I just want to say I actually learned a great solution to that from your last session with the Zapier team. So yeah, just a little plug for Talkbase here. It was really helpful in terms of like setting boundaries. And I feel like it can apply to all different teams. So obviously Meghan has her answer, but I would also recommend watching that too.
Let me find the replay while Meghan gives her answer.
Yeah, Carola, what I would probably recommend, or the first thing that comes to mind, is it's going to be hard for you as the community manager to advocate for what gets prioritized or deprioritized, especially if the community's new, and you're trying to navigate making friends while also deprioritizing things that aren't as important. So I would go to your beta testers or members of the community and get some form of data that informs what they find to be the most helpful on the platform. That way, if they are able to say of maybe the product team is, or I'll just say, if they're able to say, this is the thing I find the most important, use that to inform the decision that you're making. You don't have to be the one who deprioritizes things on your own. Use your user base to justify, hey, this is the thing they're going to. So we're going to deprioritize this thing for now, if okay with you. Or let's troubleshoot and collaborate on a way that we can improve your part of the house. That would be my recommendation initially.
Love that. And I just found the link to the replay, so I've popped that in the chat, so take a look. Debbie says, sorry today, I actually need to drop off. Great to listen. And Erin also posted in there, and you can read that comment. All right, we are at time. As I mentioned at the beginning, TalkBase does have a whole hub of cross-collaboration resources, including guides and event replays. So I'm just going to pop that into the chat one last time for you to look at. So take a look. Thank you so much, Meghan and Erin, for joining us. You shared so many great tips and tricks, and yeah, I think we all agree that we would love to be in your position, having such a great cross-collaborative relationship in the workplace. So congratulations to that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Muted. Thank you.